Well, welcome back, Sarah. This is our final session together, which, I can't believe we're already here. It's
Mm.
kind of bittersweet because it's been such a great experience to do this together. And yet we're at the point where, we've got the pieces of the How to Sell in 2026 and Beyond program kind of together. And so in this session, we're going to talk a little bit more about that difference between marketing and selling with the intention that our listeners and our viewers are going to be able to really determine, is this program that's focused more on the selling side, is it right for them? We're going to talk about what I call the plan to pivot. And so we'll walk through what it means, but it's kind of like, okay, you're putting a group out there. Well, what if you don't get enough people and what if you get too many? And having a
There's
plan.
that vulnerable piece, right? Yeah.
Yes, yes, yes.
hmm
And then we'll kind of do the final wrap up of the program. So that's our plan today. How are you feeling about all this?
Yeah, like I shared before, I'm feeling a bit of sadness for our conversations to, not end, pause, because then we'll see each other again during the program, which is fun. But in the back of my head, I already have some other ideas, so I think it won't be the last time that we meet.
Yeah,
So
I
yeah.
agree. I think this is the first of many, and I'm excited about that. I'm also really excited to, see where this program goes and kind of having it out in the world and having it, ready for people to be able to sign up for. I'm really excited to see what the response is and to hear if these conversations had any impact on that and helped people kind of feel really a lot more comfortable with the decision because one of the things that I've been thinking about is so often as we prepare to put a group out into the world, for most people, it's a very internal process, right? When I
Yeah.
work with people, I'm trying to get them to talk to people all throughout it, have conversations, but so often we do all this work internally, we go out to the world, and it's kind of like, what is this thing they're talking about? And so, what I'm hoping is something like this really does help people get comfortable saying, wow, this is really thought out. There's a lot of this that really speaks to me and I'm called to it and I'm going to check it out.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I'm going to use our recordings in the email campaigns that are going to go out to my list. I've been uh, started to host Insight Timer lives. So these are kind of like Instagram lives, but on the meditation app, Insight Timer.
Yeah.
And yeah, just taking them through a series of these lives where, I kind of summarize each week into a 20-minute live stream. And so it feels good because it builds up my excitement, but it also kind of lets me kind of I get to practice a little bit of, well, is this a good angle to bring certain things in? And so yeah, it's been good.
Yeah, it's a practice. It's like planting the seeds. I used to always call it like the teaser workshop, which was kind of the formula that isn't working the same way that it used to, right? But it was this idea of you put on a workshop, they get a feel for it, and then you
Right.
sell the
Right.
group. And, people first and foremost are, onto the path, they're onto the trick of like, oh, here's a free workshop, and now you're gonna try and use
Yeah.
most of that time to sell me on something. So there's that part.
Yeah.
But I do think what I love about the inside timer strategy is you're going to places your people already are. Because
Right.
I think that's one of the things when we're looking to kind of grow the people who know us and help them kind of see those signposts towards the
Yeah.
garden. It really is, how do I show up in places that they already are instead of trying to pull them towards this workshop or pull them towards this thing. And then I'm trying to pull them towards the group. And it's a lot of pulling versus
Yeah.
kind of saying, like, where are they already? And how can
Mm.
I kind of plant some seeds there?
Mm. Yeah, I actually sent out an email with the headline, "There won't be a master class." And so that's exactly what you were saying, right? This master class, and then on the master class, there's like a 20-minute pitch. But like you said, that's not how well, first of all, people see through this. And second of all, that's exactly the opposite of how to sell in 2026 and beyond. So it would
Yes.
be pretty silly to do it that way.
Yeah, and yet it is the formula that
Mm.
most of us follow. And, I think I get the value of having someone be able to experience you and experiencing you kind of in that role. I think there's real value in that. And yet, how many times have we all signed up for the master class and it turns out it's 50 minutes selling and 10 minutes with a dangle of something, right? And so we're a lot more wary about it. I've been playing around with doing video series where it's like
Mm.
it's what would have been in the master class
Yeah.
and it leaves like with the action and then it's kind of done. So it's like these 15-minute kind of things. I haven't figured out if it works yet. Don't like, it's still pretty new, but trying to kind of say, people don't want to come live, right? It's really hard to get people to come live sometimes, especially if they don't know what the value of it is for them yet. And, I don't know about you, but I'm a listen at point 0.5, 1.5, a 2, to kind of get through some of the stuff and then I'll slow it down when it's something that I'm really interested in. And so I keep kind of thinking, well, if that's how people are consuming, how do I kind of give them what they need in the way
Yeah.
that they want?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. We just need to f find different ways of inviting people to, yeah, to check whether this is for them, whether there's value in it for them, and I don't know if the Insight Timer lives will lead to anything because what's very specific about the Insight Timer app, you can't do any promotion. So
Yes.
I'm not at all talking about the program, right? So it's really this invitation and this resonance, and people then need to actually proactively go and say, I'm going to look up who's the Saracen and Croce, and then, come to my website, or they can go to my teacher profile. But so what I'm thinking with that is it's probably more of a longer term strategy, right? You can't expect within 5 weeks to just have people, sign up to an $800 program.
Yeah.
But it is based on that resonance. And
Yes.
so if I keep hosting these Inside Timer Lives, not always with the intention of, oh, I'm selling a program after, because again, am not promoting the program at all. Then
Yeah.
it feels good because it's just conversations that really are invitations. And
Yeah.
maybe that's kind of the segue also to sell, like what's the difference between marketing
Yes.
and selling, right? Because that's a big question like that comes up a lot. And so marketing really is kind of like the here's who I am, here's what I believe in, here's my worldview, and here's how I can help you, right? So that is the marketing. And then the selling is the part where we figure out if we're a good fit, right? Here's something that I am offering that I've created with lots of love and lots of value. Is this a good fit for you? And is it the right time for you? So it's like if you imagine hosting a gathering at your house, like marketing is the invitation, is the handwritten note, it's the ambiance, it's the candles, all of that. That's setting the stage. That's the marketing, and the selling is like walking around with a tray with cups of teas and whatever bubbly and some cakes. That's the selling, and asking them, would you like some, right?
Yes.
That's the selling part. And
I
so
love
when
that
people
visual.
are, yeah, yeah. And when people are not sure, well, am I ready for the selling? Then they really need to, yeah, ask that question. Have I sent out enough invitations? And are people aware of me? So like we usually look at an email list, for example, right? And then we know, okay, yes, I've been sending out emails for a while now. There's people who know about my life's work. I'm posting on certain social media. That's the marketing piece. I've been doing that for a while. Um, and then, yes, eventually there's going to be that point where there's the selling conversation. I have something that I'm offering, whether it's coaching, whether it's a program, whether it's a product. And then the selling is kind of like the helping to make a buying decision. That's where the selling comes in. And so people can get stuck in the marketing and never go to the selling.
Yeah.
Um, and especially, introverts like myself, it's like, ooh, marketing you can do from a distance, right? And that's where kind of this idea of the new business intimacy that you talk about in the Business Like We're Human book is also comes into play because that's what we've been taught, this dream of creating an online business where you never actually have to have a human conversation. You can just have these buy buttons on your website and that's how it goes.
Voila.
It doesn't go like that, right? It just doesn't work like that anymore if it ever has. Um, and so the selling part is really the conversations and the more concrete invitation that you have something for them. So if you're offering coaching, well, it's not enough that you have a coaching offering on your website, right? Expecting that is not enough. So there needs to be a more clear invitation for people to get them to know about this coaching offering. So
Yeah,
yeah,
and when you talk about that, Sarah, what comes up for me is like the utter disappointment when it doesn't work, right?
right,
Because as we kind of talked about before, you internally got all ready for, putting that buy button on your website or like sending the one email to announce whatever it is. And then you hear crickets and it's like coming back from that disappointment and being able to kind of say, where did this not work for me? Can be
yeah,
really challenging because it's vulnerable, but also when you have a lot of people telling you that's the way to do it, it's kind of like, well, what's wrong with me? What did
yeah,
I do
yeah,
wrong?
yeah, yeah. And often what I see is like they go into the doing more mode, right? It's like, oh, maybe I didn't put enough content out there, and so there needs to be more and more content and more posts. And oftentimes these people get a lot of engagement on their posts, but no sales, right? And so that's where you're actually ready for selling most of the time. Sometimes it happens that the positioning is actually wrong and that there we have to talk about a whole other set of things. And by that, I mean like your offering is not clear or the audience is not clear, something like that. But otherwise, usually it just means that you now need to go into selling mode.
And it is a different mode, right? Like it
Right,
is a different approach. It's a different level of vulnerability. It's a different level of kind of showing up and engagement that isn't always there on the marketing side. Because you're kind of,
right,
as you said,
yeah,
there's the invitation and then there's the actual helping, kind of serving
right,
piece.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah,
yeah,
I think that's a really important kind of distinction and getting help with, understanding where are you? Where is that struggle, right?
yeah,
Is it that, still not enough people know about you, they don't know your point of view, they're not resonating yet with it versus I've got lots of people, I've got this engagement, but it's not I'm not transferring it, it's not transitioning
yeah. And I
to
want to just plug here that if people are wondering and want to have that conversation with me, I'm totally happy to have that conversation. And yes, maybe I'll point you to the Marketing Like We're Human program that starts in January again. So yeah, this is a good conversation to have and decide, well, is this program for me or is it something else or someone else as well?
What I like about that conversation is it's like it's getting help in deciding it because I think the saying is you can't see the jar, you can't see the label from inside the jar. And so
Right.
being able to have that conversation with you and also that there's an option of support either way, right? Like
Yeah.
if you are in fact in that place where it's marketing that you need to focus on first, there's the program in January versus if it's the selling, there's the one coming up in October,
Hmm. Yes,
which is
November.
awesome. Okay, so that's the distinction. And so if you're curious about, is it marketing? Is it selling? Where do I need help? That's where we talk to Sarah, and you can get help with kind of figuring that out, and then figure out what does support look like from there. The other thing we wanted to talk about was just what I call plan to pivot. And so my whole philosophy is you always have a plan that then changes, right? And
Mm.
so if you
Yes.
have the plan, you can react to what's happening. And so plan to pivot can be kind of a wide thing that I'll look at with people at at nearing the end of our work together as they're putting the group out there. And we talk about like, what are you worried about? But one of the pieces that inevitably comes up is, what if I don't get enough people? And there's also just like transparency that that is really common, especially if you're new, especially if this is the first time you're ever offering a group, especially if you're marketing, as we talked about, you just aren't getting it there, and now you're trying to sell to a whole bunch of people. And so, what I like to do with people is have the conversation around what happens if you don't get enough people, and have a plan in place so that there's all different sorts of strategies that you can have, and we'll talk through that, but that you know the plan going in. So now you're not, if you find yourself in that place, you're not now hurt and like surprised and disappointed and all this stuff, and now trying to plan in that state. You already have a plan. So you kind of know, hey, this
That
is
is
what the
so
plan is.
smart. Yeah, that's so
The
smart.
other thing I like to plan for is, what if you get too many?
Mm.
Because, first of all, I always like to be the optimist, but also that is a genuine thing. If you are creating these intimate groups where you're offering this level of support and you're supporting the activities and reflection, you have to have a cap on that group. Now you can always push it one or two, sure, but every time you make it bigger, you have the potential to impact that intimacy. And so I always like to also say, well, what if you have too many people? What does that look like? So why
Yeah,
don't we start on the minimum side? First thing first is, what is the minimum for you, Sarah, in terms of, if I don't get X number, then it doesn't make sense to run it? Because that's
right.
kind of our first thing we look at.
Yeah. Well, I think in this reflection, there's always the financial aspect, right?
Yeah.
That we usually think of first. It's like, well, if it's that, it's not even worth getting out of bed, kind of thing. Um, what I've learned over the years of running the Marketing Like We're Human program, sure, I can, decide from that place, but usually that didn't feel good. That actually did not make me feel better. Oh, now I'm canceling it and I'll have a bigger group next time. And so what I started doing is just kind of more look at what makes sense for the participants and what makes sense for, yeah, the unity of the group, right? Is it still valuable to them? And then I had a conversation with each of the potential participants and said, look, um, let's just say we're only 3 people. It's a very small group. That can be either a huge benefit because you are getting a lot of personal attention, and we can really kind of focus into your business. But if you were expecting a group and that kind of this group dynamic, it can also be a disadvantage because you won't be getting that part of it. And so then I just kind of decided, depending on their answers and what they wanted. And I think, yeah, I think every time they decided, no, let's go ahead with it.
Yeah.
And so I went with that as well.
Yeah.
Because I also felt like, well, every time I run it, I get more experience, I get more feedback, I can improve it again. And And so yeah, I just ran it every time, and I think the smallest group we ever had was 3 people. And
Yeah.
yes, that was small. Um, Especially because this was for the Marketing Like We're Human program, and I offered recordings, right? And so then there was, yeah, a few times where, oh, and this was also when I still ran it as a 3-month program. And so in 3 months, it happens much more that you're like, oh, I'm traveling. And so sometimes on the call, there was just one or two people. And so that was kind of like, I'm not sure this is actually a group program. Um,
And that's the
knowing that I
reality,
won't be
right?
offer, sorry.
That sorry, just that's the reality, right? When you
Yeah.
do have that smaller group, like 3 or 4 people, if one or two people don't show up, suddenly you're talking to one person, you're talking to
Yeah.
2 people. And so
It's,
and there's nothing wrong with that. And yet that's part of what this plan to pivot is like, okay, are you okay with that? What does that
is
mean?
that
What is your
okay? Yeah.
strategy for that? What does that look like?
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So making it very concrete for this program, I would do the same thing. I would say, look, um, there's three potential participants. Have a conversation with each of them. Have a conversation with you as well, right? Because you're part of this. And then we decide together whether three is the minimum or you know whether it has to be four because people say no. So kind of make it a collective decision that would be my minimum plan.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. I love that. I love the bringing in the participants and kind of getting their perspective on it because it's their experience too, right? They're part of it. So that active co-creation of it. What also sometimes happens when I'm working with people on this is, we'll kind of say four is usually like that number. Between 4 and 6 is usually kind of where it becomes like, okay, anything beyond that, we're going ahead. The other thing that sometimes will happen is people will postpone it. So they'll say to people, hey, we didn't have enough. I'm going to relaunch it. But you actually choose the timing for the people who already signed up. So you kind of
Right.
collectively go back and say, okay, if we do it in 2 months and if it's on a Thursday or whatever it is. And so you ensure that the people who genuinely showed that first level of interest are in it. And then what you're able to also then do is when you go to relaunch it, you already have, like you're already at that point where okay, you've got almost that minimum. So there,
Right.
you're feeling good about it, but also you can talk about that you've already got 4 people, not in a false, like, oh, urgency or anything like that, but just in the reality of one of the things that I do talk to clients about if they choose that strategy is what are you giving in the meantime, right? So how are you supporting those people between
Mm.
kind of that the original time and when it finally
Yeah,
goes, what
because
does
they
that
were
look
like
like?
ready to go and
You were
they're like,
ready to
oh
go,
no.
right? And so, yeah, right. And
Mm.
so, it can be things as, I've had clients who have just simply hosted, a monthly call with those people. And
Mm.
so there's a level of support. They're kind of digging into it, but they're not jumping right into it. Um, Another strategy is do you have people in your network that just having them in the room at a discounted rate or, no charge brings value to having that group and kind of pre-identifying who those people are, right? And so I've been that for some of my clients, right? It's like
Mm.
occasionally it's like, will you be my final person? And we're open about it. We're not hiding anything. It's kind of like I'm here and I play this kind of dual role, but I am a genuine participant in it. And so having that list of people of, okay, if we're getting kind of close to that point and I'm 1 or 2 away from my minimum, who would really value the experience but also add value to it? Either you just know their perspective is going to be really helpful or they'll give you like really good feedback and like tell you what it's really like to experience the group, all that kind of stuff. And so having that list kind of prepared ahead of time so that you can give them the heads up at the right time to kind of say, hey, is this something you'd be willing to do?
Yeah, that's a great idea. I've done that in the past as well, that I, kind of handpicked a member of the community and said, "Hey, there's an opportunity to join at a reduced rate," and then everybody wins.
Everybody wins, right?
Yeah.
And some people have scholarships. Like it's all those kinds of things. I had one client who they picked someone who, you know, if you looked at it, you could argue they were a competitor, but they, you know, they really were more complementary when you started getting down to it. And so
Mm.
it ended up turning into a collaboration after the fact. But
Oh,
it
that's
was so
great.
good for the participants because
Hmm.
there was someone there. And again, they were clear about what was going on. So it wasn't like, why is this person in this group who like
Hmm.
has all this experience? They kind of talked about how it came to be. And so there's lots of different ways that you can kind of say, like, who could I add to the group that is of benefit to the group, with the
Yeah.
clear thing being transparency and, you know, just letting people kind of know this is what's happened and this is why this person is in the room too.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think the transparency piece is key, right? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that is the minimum part. What would you say is the limit? What is the highest number of people you would be comfortable having in this
Mm.
group?
Hmm. I think going forward, it would be 12 people. I think for this round, because it's the beta round, I would say 8, but because you're also there, I'd say, we can do 10, because there's two of us. So
Yes.
10 would be the maximum. And then I would start to have conversations about, the next program and what's on offer in between or whatever that could look like. Yeah.
Yeah, and so that's the key part there is, okay, if I hit my maximum, what happens? And usually, you know, when you hit the maximum plus one, most of us will be like, oh, it's okay, right? Like, so we have kind of the range, but we say it's 10. And then the choices that you have are, if, you know, if you have more than that kind of maximum plus one, is you can break the group in half, right? You can kind of say, there was such a demand, let's do it. And then again, you're
Mm.
talking to everybody and saying, okay, now it's a different date and time, which will always change who's available. So just because you want to do that doesn't mean
Hmm.
it works. And it
Yeah.
isn't a, oh, you signed up for this date and now I'm changing it. Again, it's this conversation with people and kind of finding out what's available to them. And one of the things that I think people don't necessarily recognize is when you have kind of at least a loose structure in place for your group, the repeatability part is such an important part for me, right? The sustainability part. And so when you have two groups doing the same thing going on at the same time, it can feel like a lot, especially if it's the first time you're running it, but it also is such great experimenting because within usually a week's period of time, you're doing the same thing again, but you're doing it for other people. And so you start to really see what worked consistently, what didn't. Oh, I said it better that time, or oh, wow, I really confused them that way. And so it actually ends up being a really great, you know, A/B test if you have the structure in place. If you don't have the structure in place, it is a complete headache and nightmare and stresses me out just thinking
Yeah.
about it.
Yeah.
And then the other thing you can do is that there's a wait list. So as you said, right, it's like, okay, I'm offering another one 2 months from now. We'll get you enrolled in that if you want, you know, and you can do things like kind of have that in between time. Like, is there a call in between? Is there an open house in between? Is there something in between that kind of keeps them engaged and satisfied with it? That type of thing. So it's kind of how do you keep them going? And so if you kind of think about that, does that kind of change at all what you're thinking if you hit that maximum or give you any food for thought?
I like the idea of, splitting up the group and then saying, hey, you know, yeah, I'm gonna run it twice basically and not wait because I think my intention was to run it again in April, and so I could run it again earlier, let's say in March or February, and then ask half of the group, hey, do you want to do it then? Even though yeah, I do think people when they, if they sign up, they're like, I want to do it now.
Yes,
So,
yes.
um, yeah, it'll be interesting to have these conversations and see what comes out of that. Have you ever had clients who ran two programs in parallel.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
So
that's
it's
another option,
yeah,
right? To
so
just say,
that
well, are you
yeah.
available on Tuesday instead of Thursday?
Yeah, so when I say split it, that's exactly what I mean is in
Okay.
parallel, you're
Ah,
like,
okay.
okay, we were originally meeting on Tuesdays, this group is on Thursdays, same weekly schedule, that type of thing. And so,
Right.
because yeah, you don't want to split it up and then give them 2 months to like talk themselves out of it and find something else
Yeah,
or whatever,
exactly.
right?
Yeah.
So yeah, no, the splitting up is then you do it in parallel, and that's
Okay.
where it actually becomes a really great test of oh, this happened with this group, this happened with this group. What was different?
I get it, what you meant. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
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 And so yeah, it as long as you have the structure, it's actually relatively easy. You will have the time where your brain will, fog a little
Yeah.
and
Who's
you'll
in
you'll
which group? And
yeah, right. Or like you'll say, remember we were talking, and then people will look at you. But again, you're
God,
transparent,
yeah.
right? And we're talking about you're still going to have if let's say you get 20 people and we decide, okay, there's a split, we're doing 10 and 10, or let's do 16, 8 and 8. 8, you're going to remember 8, right? You're not going to have brain fog on the 8 as much, but again, it's the transparency of saying, hey, bigger demand than we thought. The way I'm a very fair person. Like fairness is like a big value for me. And so I kind of go to the people who signed up first, right? Like, hey, you got there. I'm going to ensure you're whole. But if
Hmm.
anyone in here has that ability to move over to a different date and time, great, that's fair. If not, then the people who came after and kind of missed the deadline of it, if you will, then it's okay, is there another date we can find? And
Yeah.
sometimes there's not, right? Sometimes it's
Yeah.
like I can only make that time. And then that's where I start to be like,
Yeah.
everything happens for a reason.
Yeah.
I'm going to assume this is
Yeah.
it.
And I could also see the benefit of doing that and then having calls, certain like add on some calls where there's the two groups together.
Yes.
Imagine that. Yeah, that sounds
Yeah,
great.
because then that becomes your maintenance group, right? You can bring
Mm-hmm.
them together on the
Mm-hmm.
maintenance side because we're not quite needing that same level of intimacy for that group. We're really just
Yeah.
helping them in the implementation and integration. And now suddenly you've got a bigger group of people who've gone through the same program, doing the same things. And that's where, to me, it's that snowball where it starts to kind of, get bigger and bigger and feed itself, not to the point of overwhelm, but it really does become something because you will lose some people along the way. And so when you have the two groups that then lead to the maintenance group,
Yeah.
it usually works well that way.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's our plan to pivot. So in this case, we're looking for, between that 4, 5, 6 area and the 10, 11, 12-ish piece. And then we have a potential plan for if that goes higher.
Yeah.
Very
Yeah.
cool.
I think, I think the right people show up. We've said that many times in other circumstances, and the right people will show up.
Yeah.
And it's going to be amazing.
Yeah. I always find that like when someone can't do something or it's feeling like, it's just not working for them, I'm always like, I really believe in timing. Like it will make sense when it makes sense. So, yeah.
Yeah. Mm.
So, why don't we kind of finish here in the sense of let's do kind of one final invitation to people so that, through kind of this whole process where we started talking about this collaboration and, we did a visualization and we went to a future participant and we went through kind of all the pieces of what this program is, all the do's, all the no's, all the feels, all the outcomes, all the resources. What is kind of that final invitation you have for people that this is something that might be of interest to them?
Yeah, the invitation is really to imagine to s- to sell from a different place, to feel good about selling their offerings, to feel enough, to feel valuable, and to, yeah, really just relax into it. I remember how I felt on sales calls where I had a script on my desk and it was just like nerve-wracking and it was terrible. So really imagining yourself in that serene garden and selling from that place, but feeling very solid about your offering as well. So I want to just underline again how yes, we're going to be going into the woo and the, you know, finding out more about you and your human design, but it's it's rooted in so much depth and knowledge about your ideal client, about your offering, about the value you offer, and using the right language that you will feel really grounded in these sales conversations. And saying your price out loud won't be like this nerve-wracking thing anymore. And yeah, feeling really good about receiving that money as well. So that's the invitation to really step into this, you know, different way of running your business, different way of selling.
Yeah. So if people are interested, they're kind of getting that tug, or they're in the, as we talked about earlier, like, am I marketing and selling? I'm not sure where I am. What is the best next step for people to take?
Yeah, they can go over to the page, the invitation page at humanemarketing.com, how to sell. So that's the link to the page, and there's a bunch of different buttons in order to get a slot in my calendar and just have a human conversation with me and get into that business intimacy and experience also how I walk my talk in this sales conversation. So not coming in with fear that, oh my God, she's going to try to convince me and manipulate me. Like that is not happening, right? So it's
Yes.
just a human conversation to find out, well, is it this thing? Is it selling that I need to focus on? And if it is selling, well, yeah, do you have any questions left around the program? Um, the the reason I focus mainly on marketing in my work is because the selling becomes so easy, right? And I hope that these conversations have become part of that. So if people have listened to these conversations, they should know all the content in the program. And, you know, they read the sales page, they're like, it's either a yes or it's a no, but let me talk to Sarah. And then, you know, together we'll decide, yes, it's definitely a yes, or we'll have a humane conversation about a payment plan or a different way of, you know, payment, because that's part of the sales conversation. I can't afford it right now. Is there any other way? So that's all part of the humane sales conversation.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'll just add to that, the conversation might also be, because sometimes this happens with groups where it's the group is appealing. And then once you get into it, you're like, actually, I just want to work with you, Sarah, one-on-one. I just want
Right.
full focus and I just want it to be about me. And so that can be part of that conversation as well. I know that's happened for me sometimes too, where it's like people think it's a group that they want. And, I've made that decision too, where it's like, I'm the group person, but I don't want a group. I want the one-on-one attention because it's so needed in this moment. And so all of those are options when you have this conversation,
Exactly. Yeah.
and it's
Yeah.
it's not
And if
pressured.
people are listening and they're like, you know, I don't have the funds, I don't think I'm ready. Well, there's always this selling like we're human book that, you know, is can't remember how much, $10 or something like that. And it comes with a workbook. And that's a great way to start getting into these topics because that's what this program is based on. So,
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. And it really is, as I personally read the book as we were kind of working through this, it really is, it's the type of book that it invites action. And so, check that piece out too, for sure.
mm,
Awesome. Well, Sarah, thank you so much for having this conversation with me out in public and doing this. I'm really looking forward to co-leading with you how to sell in
mm.
2026 and beyond.
Thank you, Carrie. And I just want to add as well, like highlight your expertise in creating these small and really impactful groups. And and yeah, showcasing your framework through these conversations that we've had. And I hope people realize the value of this content as well. Yes, it was focusing on the how to sell in 2026 and beyond, but like when I shared it with people, I'm like, listen, this is how you build a small group, right? You just follow this or work with Kerry directly, but like this is hugely valuable for people who are listening and wanting to create their own group program. So yeah, just wanted
Thank
to
you.
highlight you as well.
Thank you. Yeah. And it's that piece where it's like, I think there's so much out there in the market about these groups and hundreds of people and, this whole quantity game. And what we walk through is really a quality game. It is a
Right.
different game, it's a different outcome, and it's a different role as a group leader. So yeah, absolutely. If this is kind of appealing to that part of you too, I would love to have a conversation with you, or come check me out on LinkedIn is the best way to connect with me. So Sarah, congratulations for getting to this point. The program is out in the world, and I look forward to co-leading our first session together.
Yay.
Bye.
Thank you.